Kanye and Burzum, the crossover I don't think anybody had on their bingo cards this year. A couple of days ago, Kanye West dropped his new album with Dolla entitled Vultures, sporting some pretty terrible artwork, the vibe of which will be instantly recognisable to any metalhead or punk. But who designed it? Why has Kanye embraced a black metal aesthetic? And will it have a positive or a negative effect on the world of metal art and design? So this album art for Vultures is, I think I can confidently say, objectively bad. Like, even just in a technical sense, it's incredibly low effort. And wait, disclaimer, that's just, what is it, dude?
Well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's just my opinion, man. But I don't think Kanye cares about that. He's after the notoriety that he's gonna get from drawing artistic inspiration, and possibly some political inspiration, from one of metal's most infamous madmen, Varg Vikernes. So little info about Varg for those who don't know is that he grew to prominence in the Norwegian black metal scene in the early 90s after he joined the band Mayhem. In 1994 he was convicted with the murder of his fellow bandmate Euronymous before he founded his own project Burzum. He loudly promoted his views of esoteric Nazism and paganism, with a particular taste for anti-Semitism and general racism. So I wonder why Kanye might be vibing with this awful person. See here, for example, this is artwork from Varg's one-man black metal project Burzum. The atmospheric art style of the painting is because it's actually a piece created by the 19th century Norwegian neo-romantic artist Theodor Kittelsen. The painting in situ on the album artwork is accompanied by the simple yet impactful black letter Old English style font called Gregorian, which in its design language outwardly communicates an aesthetic of an old Germanic conservative way of life, which Varg very publicly yearns for. And we're going to come back to that one shortly. But this style of minimal and gothic era influenced artwork and typography can be seen in all sorts of metal adjacent artwork stretching from the 80s through to today, most of which are not adherent to the National Socialist mindset of Varg. So of course, I'm not damning this aesthetic in its entirety. It looks awesome. I'm just bringing to life Varg's particular usage and the Germanic roots of this lettering and ethereal painting style. I think it's pretty clear where Kanye and his designer Gosha Rovchensky were going with this art. Gosha simply took a painting from the 19th century German artist Caspar David Friedrich entitled Vulture on a spade. He cropped it into a square, reduced the saturation on it, and then slapped on our old free font Gregorian. I wonder why. I think it's pretty telling that Friedrich, the author of the painting that Gosha used for the Kanye artwork, also happens to be the favourite artist of another Austrian painter who cannot be named on YouTube. I think you know who I mean. Gosha is not without controversy too. This quote-unquote designer who has no ties to the underground music of metal or punk does have some other characteristics that might be more up Kanye's alley. I'm talking about the glorification of totalitarian dictatorship, as well as a pretty heavy scandal of the alleged sexual assault of minors under his belt. And calling whether he's worth his salt as a designer into question, check out this tattoo that he designed for Kanye. He's just typed out Saint West in art dystopia. It's one of the most memed and cringe fonts of the last 5 years in the metal world. Yeah, check this bad boy out. I'm gonna get this tattooed on me face. Saint Spearhead, sick. A potentially less dodgy example is Playboy Cardi, who's also been biting into the hardcore and metal aesthetic pretty heavily with his artwork, especially for example Bad Brains Quickness art, as well as that iconic photo of HR stage diving. He's also been putting out some, I don't know, kind of basic metal style merch. But the redeeming factor here is that this logo in particular is really well designed and delivered. So I do think this logo was created by a specialist, and that makes me think that either he or his team are in fact into metal music and the vibe, with some possible connections to the scene as a whole. I gotta say, it is super sick to see a lot of his fans, particularly kids, like posting on Reddit, really exploring and getting interested in the vibe of say black metal and death metal art, and then going on to like discover the music. Back to the Vultures artwork though. I know Kanye is already well known for some pretty terrible art and merch designs. He's also flirted with the metal aesthetic before, albeit in a more H&M centric sort of style, such as for his Yeezus tour God Wants You merch. I'm just going off on one here, but like Jesus, I think that's absolutely shocking bad. But at least there's a bit of love and skill and attention put into that artwork, because when I first saw this Vultures artwork, I couldn't help but be shocked by how thematically lacking in any form of substance it is. It's just ridiculous. If we take a look at some of the merch designs that Kanye and Gosha are putting out to coincide with the release of Vultures, there is pretty much only one evil empire that this Prussian and Germanic iconography sort of brings to mind in this day and age. And you ain't going to get a gold star for figuring that one out, boyo. Come here, let's just see how long it'll take me to recreate it in Photoshop. So I've opened up Photoshop, I've got Vultures by Friedrich right here. I'm just going to go over to crop and set it to 1:1 so it's a nice square. And I'm going to bring it in a little bit just to frame it nicely. Now I'm going to go into filter, into camera raw, and I'm going to go into effects. Going to nudge the texture and the clarity up a little bit, not too much. Then I'm going to go into color, I'm going to drop the vibrance, and I'm going to drop the saturation. Lovely. Now I'm going to go into text tool and type in Gregorian and select that font. I'm going to click on my artboard and type out Vultures. Nice. Just embiggen that a little bit.
It's a perfectly cromulent word.
And drag it up to the top. I think it's a little too wide, so I'm going to drop it down to about -20. Lovely. Now with my text tool again, I'm going to type in volume 1. And I'll drag that down to the bottom right corner. Now I'm going to go into layer styles, and into drop shadow. I'm going to change my shadow to white, I'm going to set my blend mode to normal, and I'm just going to play around with the spread and the size and change my angle to 90 degrees. And damn, I think we're done. Sweet, that'll be 50 grand please, yay. Don't worry, my accounting team will be in touch. I'll send the invoice over to you via email. Nice one. So this brings me on to my main thoughts about what sort of effect will this mainstream style biting and aesthetic lifting have on the world of metal and metal art as a whole. Like, I don't see myself as a gatekeeper of any kind. I always want to look on the bright side of things, and I do agree that the more exposure that the general public has to metal and metal art and dark art in general is going to be a good thing for the scene as a whole. It'll surely be a good thing for metal designers and dark artists because it's going to increase the overall demand for our work, as well as expanding the general pool of clientele. It's also really sick to see an art style that I've pretty much devoted my entire life to suddenly becoming appreciated by a much wider audience than I ever thought possible. But the problem that I'm currently seeing is that 9 out of 10 times these big mainstream music artists or high fashion brands, they're not actually going to metal artists and designers for their work. Instead, they go to their big cash grab design agencies that have little to no understanding of the visual language that goes into this art form. And then the product ends up being like a pale comparison of what it could be. Sure, Kanye going for Gosha is probably some real messed up notion of fraternal notoriety. To be honest, I think Kanye's main modus operandi right now in his kind of mental illness is just to stay controversial, he gets more publicity that way. It's sadly becoming more and more common for these big high fashion French brands and stuff to spit out absolutely subpar metal and hardcore style artwork and slap it on a t-shirt and then charge a bomb for it. Take for example this Vetemon hardcore style t-shirt for 850 quid. 850 quid! And the artwork literally looks like something you buy in pennies, which I'm going off on one here, but that's a really kind of tacky, cheap clothing shop in Ireland. It's okay though, because the rich kids who unwittingly buy NSBM merch on Depop and wear it down the club, they're gonna love it. Personally, I'd much rather buy an absolutely savage t-shirt from, say, My Friends and Lowest Creature, designed by my buddy Curse of Face for 15 quid at a gig, and then still have plenty of coins left to buy pints. And look, I'm not saying that I'm any sort of authority on the metal and punk aesthetic, or even that I'm a good designer, but I can say that I've spent over half of my life involved with underground metal, punk and hardcore. Since 2007, I've been putting on gigs, playing gigs in multiple bands, touring around Europe and making logos, artwork and merch designs for bands all over the world.
I was born in it, molded by it.
So I think you'll understand when I see these listless, soulless flavour of the month cash grabs, I can't help but feel a little bit deflated and conflicted. I don't know, man. I guess a lot of this amalgamation of the metal aesthetic with the mainstream can indeed be attributed to the likes of, say, TikTok and the fact that we spend so much more time online these days. That's a double-edged sword though too, because it's truly sick that metal music and art is now so much more accessible to people all over the world. Like for example, my old local hardcore scene in Dublin, as well as my new adoptive local hardcore scene in Jönköping here in Sweden, they've both exploded in the last say 2 years with young people who discovered hardcore on TikTok, and then with a bit of digging found out that they've got hardcore scenes in their city. Now these kids are getting stuck in, you know, they're going to shows, they're starting bands, they're moshing hard, and they're just being involved from the ground up. That absolutely rules, because without that injection of youthful energy, like, our scenes would just fizzle up and die, because old decrepit folk like me get more caught up with paying bills and keeping the lights on than being able to go to gigs every week or two. But back to the mainstream, right? I would love to see more pop and hip hop artists go down the route that Rihanna did. Her team hired the legendary Christoph Spiedel? How do you say that?
Spiedel.
The lord of the logos, for her amazing death metal style logo that they actually used at MTV's VMAs back in 2016. It turned out incredibly sick. David Farrier from the spin-off New Zealand actually interviewed Christoph about Rihanna commissioning this logo, and this excerpt is from his article. Willow Perron, art director for Drake, Kendrick and Rihanna among others, has a copy of Christoph's Lord of the Logos book and has actually given copies to his friends. When this performance came up, we wanted to do something special for the video and wardrobe, so we reached out to Christoph. Says Cindy Lynn, who works on Perron's team. This is exactly what you want to see. A mainstream artist, art director, recognizing the talent and expertise of an incredible metal artist and actually reaching out to that artist for the work. And honestly, I think the results speak for themselves. I've actually had the pleasure of speaking to Christoph via text multiple times, and this dude is an absolute gem. He lives and breathes this stuff. I'm sure a lot of you guys will already know Christoph as one of the most prolific metal logo designers in the whole scene. He penned like the iconic Emperor logo among many more. I think it's so perfect that this humble and straight up professional artist actually got to design a logo for one of the biggest artists in the world on his own merit. It would just be so sick to see this become the norm, rather than these fashion brands churning out lackluster, soulless and sanitized attempts at a metal aesthetic. So yeah, I think I just wanted to have a rant about how awful the Vultures artwork is and how kind of sketchy the practice of say Kanye and Gosha is. But now this is the positive side of me coming out. I think this might be a blessing in disguise. Like, I do hope that the adoption of the metal and punk style of art and design by the mainstream that we've seen does continue, and that it continues opening the door to the music and the art style that we love so much to new people that might not have found it otherwise. You know, more education and more understanding of any sort of topic benefits everybody in the long run. Anyway, cheers for putting up with me. I'm new to more topical sort of videos like this. But sure, let me know in the comments if you agree with my opinions or if you don't agree with them. And let me know if you want me to make more sort of videos in this style in the future. I'm totally up for it. Oh yeah, like and subscribe if you want, or don't. And have a nice day. Love you guys. Peace.